Welcome back. Bart Cummings has trained 8 horses to win 9 Melbourne Cups. Lee Freedman has won a Melbourne Cup. This year he's won the Caulfield Cup, the Cox Plate and practically everything else. Both trainers are very much in form. They join us this morning. Bart has 2 runners in the Cup, Let's Elope London Bridge. Lee has 3 in the Cup, Sub-Zero, Heroicity. And Lee, what's the other one? Oh, Superimpose. I've heard of him, haven't I? Welcome, gentlemen. Everyone wants to know about Let's Elope. You scratched her yesterday from the McKinnon Stakes. It seems as if her chance of winning the Melbourne Cup might have gone after yesterday. What's the latest with her?
She's officially notified the VRC 7:30 this morning she's not going to run.
So she's out officially?
That's right. So
well, that's huge news. Let's Elope officially scratched from the Melbourne Cup. It's pretty early to... I mean, you've accepted last night at 6:30 or whatever time, and you've scratched so early at 7:30 this morning.
Well, if the weather improved and didn't rain overnight, we wanted to give every opportunity to run in the Cup, but it looks as though the weather's going to stay the same. There's no possible chance of running in the conditions which they raced on yesterday. Well,
I just wonder, Lee, about Superimpose, who's one of your 3 chances. If it was a bog track on Tuesday, would Superimpose go around? Because he too is really non-effective on slow ground.
Well, that's true. He's probably a little bit better position than, say, Let's Elope. I know how she just hates any sort of wet ground. He can handle something up to nearly slow, so we're going to give ourselves another day or so to have a look at it.
You're in a strange situation. I know Keith and Max are chafing at the bit because a slow track would really suit Sub-Zero, I feel. He'll run a very strong second favourite on a slow track. A fast track's going to suit Heroicity and Superimpose. Given a choice, what would you like the track to be on Tuesday? Where's your best chance?
Oh, it's a choice no one's going to have to make because it's not going to be fast.
You train on the track. What's the best that the track could improve to with rain-free time between now and the Cup lead?
Well, if it was windy and hot the next 2 days, it could probably get back to good, but the forecast doesn't say that. The forecast says showers and maybe a fine day tomorrow and then more showers. So I think we're looking at least a dead to slow track.
At the best, I'd say at this stage. You still didn't answer my question. Who's your best chance of the 3?
Well, I'd say after yesterday's racing and the way the weather is, I'd say Sub-Zero.
You did run very well, but do you feel you've lost any chance you had of winning the Cup? London Bridge didn't seem to fire yesterday. He wasn't that far away. No.
Well, he prefers a better track than he raced on yesterday. Perhaps Tuesday may be better. He can handle a dead track and probably slow, but not when it gets continuous rain and gets chopped up like yesterday. Not too many do like it.
Tell you what's a great thing, gentlemen, is to have numbers in big races, and you've known that over the years, Bart, because Lightfingers beat Zima when I think you thought Zima would beat Lightfingers, and Think Big beat Leilani when you thought Leilani would beat Think Big. Mannerism has won races this year you thought someone else might win. Superimpose has won. Lee's got tremendous opportunity with 3 horses.
Just proves we're bad judges.
You're telling us we can't pick a winner?
I'm not saying that at all.
Talking numbers, Bart, the Melbourne Cup full gate now reduced to 23 with your champion Mare out. There were 4 or 5 runners that didn't get into the field. Should there be an emergency?
Well, I don't know. You've got all the year to prepare them, and usually there's a capacity field. But do you need so many in the race?
You don't think so?
Well, I don't think so. The interference and the tightness of the races in Australia, particularly the big money in Victoria, at present this time of the year, does lend itself to very hard to get a run. The race very tight, and it's very difficult for the stewards to monitor every problem that develops under these conditions, and probably the large fields do tend to make it difficult to control it.
Well, Bart, large fields or large money?
Well,
because we do get small fields at times, and let's have a look at the Cox Plate. It was a small field. There's plenty of interference there, particularly after 3 horses were put out of the race.
Max, the Cox Plate is run on a very small track, and perhaps 12 would be, or 10 could be much preferable on a tight circuit like the Valley. It's a lovely track, good for the public. They see it like they can't see a race anywhere else. It's right on in the action firing line on the edge of the track, but it does lend itself to interference because of the large number of horses, and 14 on that track is a large number.
We'll see that in a moment. There's 14 in the Cox Plate, there's 18 in the Caulfield Cup where there are emergencies, and 24 in the Melbourne Cup. Let's go to the Caulfield Cup. It's usually a very good guide. Actually, before the Caulfield Cup, I'm jumping. The Melbourne Cup's normally a pretty good guide. Thanks, Bart. I just dropped my book. Let's Elope winning last year. Bart, this will bring a tear to your eye, I know. She was outstanding last year. Superimpose was a terrific run last year, Lee, when I think a lot of people didn't think he had much of a chance. The surprise about this fellow is that most people would say he's not a 2-miler, yet in his 2 goes, he's run second to Terrific, where he looked the winner at about the furlong, and he's run 4th to a mighty mare in Let's Elope.
It's a funny thing about him, I suppose, with age, he's no longer the force of the mile that he used to be, but now he's shown a capacity for staying a lot better, I think.
What do you feel, Bart, with horses like Better Loosen Up and Superimpose that are, there's all the interference with the Shiver's Revenge coming out after Let's Alone. What do you feel about horses that have got so much brilliance? And I guess Viandacross almost comes into this, where they can sprint so quickly. Do you feel that they're a good prospect in Melbourne Cups?
It's quite obvious you need more weight for age races in Australia to cater for these champions, where they get an equal fair crack at them and uninterfered with the lower rated horses.
Now, come on, you're not going to suggest the Melbourne Cup should be weight for age. You won the darn thing 9 times.
I've always said the Caulfield Cup would be a great way for age race.
Gee,
You can win it and not get a penalty in the Melbourne Cup.
We shouldn't today especially talk about non-Melbourne Cup runners, but Let's Elope, what is for her now as she goes towards the Japan Cup?
Well, we've been invited to an exhibition gallop on CNN Cup Day by Dale Monteith from the VATC, which she invited us last week. We said it's too early to make that decision, but now the track's deteriorated in this condition, we'll accept that offer. And 2 days later, she'll fly to Tokyo for the Japan Cup, Keith.
Keith, Lee, you'd be interested in running naturalism against her just in a track gallop for about 100,000?
Yeah, I'd be very interested in weight for age.
Welcome. Yeah.
You're serious, Bart?
Certainly.
You'd take naturalism on or one of Lee's on for some money?
I'd welcome the offer.
And do you think the VATC are interested in another match race?
Well, I thought it was such a success, I think it could be ongoing.
And the money from your pocket?
The stake?
Pardon?
The money from your own pocket?
My supporters, yes.
OK, Bart. Well, that's interesting. Maybe another match race. Bart said every 20 years he thought was a good thing. Obviously, every 20 days now. Here's the Caulfield Cup. As I was saying, Bart's used this pretty well in the past to win Melbourne Cups. Galilee won the double in '66. Red-handed was placed in the Caulfield Cup and went on and won. It's been a great guide over the years. Viandacross, we've talked a lot about. I thought Sub-Zero's run was terrific here as well, Lee. He's ran 4th in this race. You must have been pretty delighted. You won the race with Mannerism, who's not in the Cup, obviously, and Sub-Zero running on strongly for 4th.
He's had a very good preparation. He hasn't really put in a disappointing run yet. And he seems a really ideal Melbourne Cup type horse, given these conditions, I think.
What did you think, Bart, from the Caulfield Cup was the best run from a Melbourne Cup point of view?
Well, Viandacross nearly went 2 miles, so I think he'll stay the Cup all right. He was a great performance.
Outstanding. Do you think he's a 2-miler, Bart? I mean, how can you tell? I know, but this is the query on him, isn't it?
I was only joking that he went 2 miles, but it does seem to me that he could do it quite well. The recipe for Melbourne Cup was always to be run 2nd or 3rd in the Caulfield Cup and avoid a penalty. Well, he did that, not by intent, I'm sure, but as it turned out, he's in penalty-free, and he's the one to beat, no doubt about that.
Well, the Cox Plate hasn't been a very good guide over the years. Let's have a look at that this year. There are a lot of hard luck stories. Lee Friedman winning the race with Superimpose. Bart finishing 2nd over the line and then losing that position with Let's Elope, and of course the 4 with Palace Rain, Naturalism and Citizen.
Very packed there.
And they're about to come out. Keith and Max, your thoughts on the Cox Plate? I mean, generally it's been a very poor guide.
Well, I think especially this year it will be virtually of no significance. It was a roughhouse race. A great horse won it, but for the Cup Carnival and for the Cup in particular, I think this race has no significance.
I'm fascinated at your thoughts, Max, because you called Superimpose a powder puff champion 6 months ago, and then last week you were screaming what a great Sydney horse he is. Now, what do you think of him, really?
I never, ever called Superimpose a powder puff
Cream
champion.
puff was it?
Cream puff, wasn't
Well,
it?
get it right. Get it right.
Cotton
No, I
wool
said he's a
champion.
champion.
Cotton wool champion.
Cotton wool champion.
Lee remembers. Lee remembers. Max, has Superimpose got a chance?
A great horse on his day. Certainly, he's had a lot more days lately. If he gets conditions to suit, Superimpose has a chance, but I doubt that he's going to
And
get
a tip for you, I'd stop calling Shane Dye Master of the Universe. You're not built like Mr. Universe yourself, you know.
He might thump me. No, he wouldn't do that. I get on very well with him. We're about to wind up. Finally, to Lee and Bart, because Max and Keith are going to give their selections in the next segment. Lee, you've got 3 terrific chances. Sub-Zero?
I've got to go for him. I've got a doubt that the favourite will run the 2 miles. I've always had that doubt because I've seen him in a 1.5 miles 3 or 4 times. And I know this horse will, and I'm pretty sure he'll get the right conditions.
Scalacci to run on Thursday if the track's all right?
Yeah, if the track's all right, he'll run.
And Naturalism OK for the Japan Cup?
100%.
And he might take Bart on in the match race. Bart, outside of London Bridge, who would you be selecting in the Melbourne Cup?
I think I'd have to stick to Viandacross. Cavalier is going to have a good chance, I think. He's especially prepared for it. Laurie Laxton, he's pretty good at his profession, and I think he'll have the horse pretty right on Tuesday.
That's an interesting one, Cavalieri. Bart should know with Empire Rose and his connection with Laurie Laxon. We've been talking to two legends of the turf, Lee Freedman, who's just become a legend in the last 12 months. And Bart, he's a young one. Bart, you weren't a legend at 36, but you are now at whatever you are. Only just 9 Melbourne Cups for Bart. It's not a bad record, is it? It'll never be equalled or broken. We take a break. Max and Keith return with a special story on Viander Cross and look again at yesterday's, particularly the Dalgety and the McKinnon.
Academy Award.
Well, we remain with the Melbourne Cup story, and it's the stuff fairy tales are made of, but we're yet to discover whether this one will have a really happy ending. The story so far, a young New Zealand school teacher with a dream to train a racehorse. That man, Chris Turner. That horse, the Melbourne Cup favourite, Viander Cross.
.30 a.m, and even by racing standards, it's a relatively early start to the day. And while Chris Turner and entourage have better things on their mind than sleep, the centre of all this attention, Melbourne Cup favourite Viander Cross, is not so sure.
Come on, stop it. You're grumpy.
As racehorses go, this one is building quite a reputation for himself, and not just on the track. As well as falling head over hooves in love with a Jersey cow called Bessie back home in New Zealand, it appears the cheeky 4-year-old is prone to a bit of trick-or-treating.
When you're fencing, you get the hammer and go off with the hammer, and you couldn't do anything in his paddock, it'd just be annoying, so we used to have to tie him up if he was doing any work in his paddock. Yeah. No, he's an unusual horse like that.
I hear stories that that sometimes better characters make better racehorses, and it seems to be a case with him.
Chris and his 64-year-old father Basil paid just over $1,000 for Viander Cross and his mother Lavender when the gelding was still a foal. It was Chris's first racehorse and the fulfilment of a lifelong dream. Armed with the knowledge from a library of textbooks, he's set to work, pounding the coastline near his 12-hectare Wanganui farm on New Zealand's North Island.
He's like a friend of mine. He calls out to me quite often. He's on my mind most of the time, I suppose. I like to make sure that he's well, and especially when I got home from school at 5 o'clock on the first appointment, so I'd go and see the children and then rush outside to see what he is up to.
And since those early days, Viander Cross has been up to quite a lot. With over $1.2 million in prize money, he's won 3 Group 1 races in the last 2 years and come second in 4 others.
Viander Cross has got the better of Naturalism close to home and is racing away and scores a top win in the Guineas. Viander Cross came away to win it a bit more than a length to Naturalism.
His first race he won quite easily, which was a 2-year-old race.
Did that surprise you that he won?
Well, we were hoping he wasn't going to come last. It was in front of the home crowd. We'd trained him. He'd won a trial before, but you never know what they're going to do on race day, and he was buried at the back. He couldn't get through, and then he made an enormous run through the pack and won by 2.5 lengths.
It's a tactic which has become his trademark, and as Shane Dye discovered 2 weeks ago at the Caulfield Cup, one that can prove just a little risky.
Viander Cross has taken the lead in the Cup. Viander Cross in front with 100 metres left to go from Mannerism trying to get to it. Viander Cross just in front. Viander Cross the outside. They hit it. Bobbing finish. Very tight. Viander Cross maybe from Mannerism. Nothing in it.
Onwards and upwards, really. It's just one of those things. We didn't win it. We keep on with our preparation and hopefully he'll do better in the next 2.
It's been a tense week for owner and jockey. Also on deck for the Spring Carnival, renowned New Zealand trainer John Wheeler.
George worked a lot better this morning than Sunday, eh? And when he worked by himself, Viander Cross.
Yeah.
He worked tardy Saturday.
Saturday, yeah, very.
He worked much better.
Yeah, he was very keen
Much
today.
more interested.
Yeah, really was.
He looks really good, you know. I think we've timed him just to be absolutely 100%.
And all binoculars were on yesterday's $300,000 McKinnon Stakes to prove it.
And Viander Cross stood there and lost about 3 lengths. Length and a half Viander Cross on the inside of Royal Magica. front, coming down to the 100 from here, a whistle in Viandacross, getting through on the inside. Viandacross has got up the score from the stablemate Rough Habit.
I thought actually that Rough Habit had beaten him. I couldn't see Shane being able to worm his way out from a seemingly impossible position and win, but that he has got that brilliant burst of speed, and he did it twice out here today, so it was excellent.
Oh, and by the way, just a final tip for Tuesday. In the last 5 years, 3 of the winners of the McKinnon Stakes have gone on to win the Melbourne Cup. The million-dollar question now, has Viandacross taken his first leap into racing folklore?
Well, from Archer, the very first Cup winner, right through to Let's Alone, there have been some magnificent stories of Melbourne Cup winners, and that's one of them if the horse can win the Cup on Tuesday. We've looked at the McKinnon and the Dalgety early. We've spoken to Lee Friedman and Bart Cummings. Yesterday, after the Dalgety and the McKinnon, Keith Hillier caught up with a number of trainers and their chances in the Melbourne Cup as they discussed them.
The Dalgety doesn't boast the recent strike rate of the McKinnon. The last stayer to complete the double was Think Big when he won the first of his 2 Cups in 1974. However, place getters in the Dalgety have an impressive recent record, including Kingston Rule, Terrific and Black Knight. Yesterday it was Valdiano who finished second, and trainer Bill Mitchell gives the 5-year-old a chance.
Well, he's bred to run the 2 miles. I think he does run it, and yeah, I'd be very hopeful. I mean, I'm happy to have him there. I think he's a real chance.
Ironically, Darren Gauci has a brilliant record in the Dalgety, but has yet to win the Cup. He's come close. The Gouch is confident yesterday's winner Big Baron will stay the trip.
I saw he'll run out at 3,200 metres. He's had a nice preparation. He ran second in the Adelaide Cup, which is usually a nice race like the Melbourne Cup. But he's progressed well, and his trainer's done a great job.
Whilst Gauci and the Big Baron punters will welcome rain, the Cavalieri camp is hoping for 3 sunny days. The chestnut seen here on the inside of Cross Swords failed to fire a shot in the Dalgety, leaving trainer Laurie Laxton a little downhearted about the New Zealand Derby winner.
On face value, Laurie, it had to be a disappointment.
Oh yes, it was. Well, the conditions, he was either going to handle them or he wasn't, and Shane said he was not handling them from the 1,200 metres home.
Like so many others, you're hopeful that Melbourne's weather will improve by Tuesday.
Oh yes, we hope so, but it's hard to see it. But it might do, and if it does and the track becomes firm, well then I hope that he's in the race and in with a chance. But at the moment it doesn't look that promising.
Metropolitan winner Tiako Nick struggled in the conditions, unplaced behind Big Baron, but the 4-year-old's trainer Gay Waterhouse remains optimistic.
It certainly suited the horses that could handle the conditions of today. They can't get any worse for Tuesday, so I think he handled it very well. He ran 50, dropped 3 kilos. I think he'll definitely be in the finish on Tuesday.
And earlier in the day, TJ's old campaigner Equidity ran a nice race, didn't he?
Oh, he'll run a great race. He drops enormously in weight, and he's such a seasoned performer. He ran second in the Sydney Cup, second in the BMW, beaten a nostril by Herosity. Equidity's got an outstanding chance in this race on Tuesday.
The gallant New Zealand stayer Castletown, galloping in the centre, was unplaced in the McKinnon, and his jockey Noel Harris joined the queue, hoping for a break in the weather.
Hopefully, I'd like this rain to stop a bit, because I think he's very well weighted at 57. Run third in Sydney Cup with 59. Actually, in Australia, he didn't have a lot of luck, you know, especially in the big ones, but he has got a good 2-mile record, and I know he'll run the distance, so that's the main thing.
David Hayes was enthusiastic about his former world beater Better Loosen Up. He was totally unsuited by the conditions when unplaced in the McKinnon Stakes.
Yes, Keith, it was a very, very good run today. Under the conditions, the horse, when he was on the bit, looked in a winning position, and when he asked him, he just won't stretch in that ground. It was held up to, and Michael had to ease him at the vital stage, right back to last, and he was doing nice work at the finish.
Will Better Loosen Up be your only Cup runner?
Brave Expectations, who just ran in the last race here, and we were very happy with his run too, because he's a noted non-wet tracker, so I'll have 2 runs.
So 3 days, you want 3 rain-free days, David?
Very good call, Keith, and can you organise it?
Yeah, I'll try. Thanks.
Well, he organises a lot of things, Keith Hillier, but I doubt whether he's got any control over that. Let's have a quick look at the market and the barrier draw. The key horses, Viandacross about 5-2 at the moment, Sub-Zero 5-1. Viandacross drawn 3, should be okay, probably better off in 8-12 or something like that. Sub-Zero 15. Let's Elope scratched. Castletown has drawn 8. Star of the Realm, well, the conditions will depend on his price. London Bridge has drawn 7. We go over the page. Heroicity's drawn 6 at 14. So Quiddity and Big Baron will both be big shorteners if it's slow or heavy. They'll come into about 10 to 1, both of them. Better Loosen Up and Superimpose will either be about 12 to 1 or they'll be about 50 to 1. Depends on the weather. And gentlemen, that's one of the biggest problems we face when we're trying to pick this year's Melbourne Cup. For instance, yesterday, Let's Elope went from a 6 to 4 chance in the morning to a non-runner, and this is going to be the problem for this year's Melbourne Cup. There are so many variables and they depend on the weather.
I think, Bruce, if this were any other handicap, Viander Cross would be at a shorter quote than 5 to 2, as Let's Elope was last year. After McKinnon Stakes Day, she looked a 6 to 4 chance in the Melbourne Cup. On Cup Day, they bet 4 to 1. That might happen again because Viander Cross has very high claims to win this Cup.
It is a fact that the Melbourne Cup is the best race in Australia to bet on because of the vast pools. Now, 3 to 1, Let's Elope started last year on the New South Wales TAB, paid something like $5.40. Despite the vast sums of public money that went onto it, the win pool was so solid that it can stand that, and that's why you'll get good value about Viander Cross. I'll be surprised in New South Wales alone if you don't do better than 5 to 2.
Well, I've asked both of you gentlemen to give 2 sets of tips today, one for a good track and one for a slow track. It could be heavy, it's not going to be any better than good, maybe only dead. Keith, your summary of your selections?
I've only switched around the Cornella, Bruce, on a good Viander Cross to beat Sub-Zero. On a slow, I think that the rain-affected track will help Sub-Zero over the distance because he's an Adelaide Cup winner. He's done the distance and he's so good in the wet. He might be the horse to beat Viander Cross on a slow. And I think the best each way bet in the race is Big Baron.
Fair enough. So not much change there from Keith on the track. For you, Max, you're sticking with Viander Cross in either conditions.
Yes, I think Viander Cross is an outstanding racehorse. I think Shane Dye will ride him well. On a goodish track, Star of the Realm was every bit as good a run yesterday as Sub-Zero. The sort of run that Bart Cummings would have liked about 10 years ago on the McKinnon, but of course he's got to have firmish conditions. I don't think he'll get them. I do think that Big Baron on a wet track is going to be a very formidable rival for Viander Cross. The win in the Dalgety was outstanding because he carried 55 and drops considerably in the weights. His line too with Sub-Zero on the Adelaide Cup is quite good. So Big Baron at the 15 to 1 each way is undoubtedly the value bet.
Well, we haven't changed much because I'm Viander Cross and Sub-Zero as well. I think that they're the 2 horses that the Cup surrounds. I'm going for Viander Cross on a good track to beat Superimpose. He's got a great record in this race and I think he's going as well as ever at this distance. I think he'll run on very strongly if held up. And Sub-Zero, and if the track is good, I think Better Loosen Up's got some hope. Slow, I think Sub-Zero for the same reasons as you, Keith. Viander Cross, and I think Equidity's got a chance on a slow track. 3rd in the McKinnon. It was a terrific run yesterday.
It's going to be a great Cup. It's one of the best fields for years, and the City of Melbourne will get the flavour of the Cup tomorrow, Bruce, with the Parade of Champions. Some of the Melbourne Cup winners of yesteryear will parade down Swanston Street Walk at noon.
Keith, as long as they don't get the flavour of more rain, it would appear that the odds about it being a goodish track are very remote. Well, you people live here. Would that be true, or do you think there's going to be another heat?
Bruce, today's turf tie is the VRC again because it is Cup week. Max last week made a comment. He said, where is Seymour, where Superimpose started his career? The good people of Seymour, Max, have not only given you a Seymour Racing Club tie, but members' admittance for the rest of the season.
Well, I'm very happy to receive that, and I'll certainly get to Seymour. So this time next year, at least, I'll know where Seymour is.
Max, you must forget all about those Easters where it's been very, very wet in Sydney. The biggest news today, Let's Elope was scratched for the Melbourne Cup at 7:30. A break, golf, Frank Williams.